It began with a mere brush of fingers. Yet the moment I sensed his response, chaos ensued. What transpired next will leave you in disbelief. Some moments are thought to be forever imprinted in our minds. They cling like whispers soft, ever lingering in the air. 2 years have quietly passed since that momentous day. It has been 2 years since everything changed beyond all recognition. Welcome to Man Story, the place to store emotional love stories. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. Wishing you enjoyable, relaxing moments. Thank you. What started as a typical day at the beach with my husband's son, Lucas, from a previous relationship, quickly evolved into an unforeseen adventure. Ethan, my husband, was once again absent, his work consistently overshadowing our lives. This solitude had morphed into a familiar companion, yet that day carried an unmistakable air of the extraordinary. In those moments, we found our sanctuaries basking in the sun's warm embrace, which may have been a touch too intense. I settled back, finally free from the clamor of life, and asked Lucas to help me with the oil on my back. I continued forward, steadfast in my belief, although he is my stepson and not of my lineage, I have cared for him as if he were my flesh and blood. What reasoning supports my decision to embark on this course of action? At first, it seemed trivial, merely his hands guiding me. Yet, in time, I came to grasp its genuine importance. His presence appeared to dissolve into the background, slowly diminishing, and I resolved to stay detached. What is the essence of this issue? Did I not succeed in stopping him? You are convinced that you possess a deep understanding, perhaps thinking you have a firm grasp on the dynamics of your family. There lies a unique instant capable of unveiling all truths. It was upon that shore where my life veered off its familiar path. A moment destined to carve itself into the very essence of my being. Ethan and I had intricately woven the fabric of our marriage for more than 15 years. To those who know us well, we might appear as the quintessential couple, living in a charming abode, nurturing admirable children, and enjoying a life marked by steadfast stability. Yet the cracks lie hidden until one finds themselves nestled within the boundaries. I held back from intervening. On weekends and holidays, I discovered comfort in the conviction that his long hours and steadfast dedication were fueled by the aspiration for a brighter future for our family. Yet, as time progresses, that story starts to fray at its seams. What worth does a house possess if it remains vacant and unblemished upon his return home? I slipped into the shadows, becoming nothing more than a faint whisper in his presence. He barely recognized that I was there. He stopped asking about my emotions, aspirations, and desires. Our dialogues were often brief, centered on matters of finance, essential household needs, and the well-being of the children. He cherished Lucas and his younger sister, Ava, with profound affection, yet, amidst the embrace of their gathering, he seemed to be naught but a passing specter. He occupied the space, yet his spirit roamed far beyond its confines. Seated across from him, I found myself pondering whether he was even aware of my existence. That morning, I vividly remember the scene in the kitchen, where Ethan hurriedly dashed out the door, a sense of urgency propelling him forward. He clutched his briefcase, placed a gentle kiss on the top of Ava's head, and cast a fleeting glance my way, silently expressing his regret. I regret to inform you, Bella, that I will not be able to attend today. A scenario unfolded at the workplace, and I opted to refrain from participating in any discord. I gently tilted my head, as was my custom, sensing a tightness in my throat in response. I softly reminded myself that it was perfectly fine. Lucas, in that fleeting moment, Lucas, just 16 and already tall and slender, offered me the chance to navigate my own path, embracing a fresh sense of independence. His brown eyes mirrored his father's, yet his expression conveyed a softer nuance. He remained silent, even as I revealed that it would be just the two of us. He seemed to have accepted his father's frequent absences, as evidenced by the nonchalant shrug that accompanied his indifference. With a firm grip on the bags, he led me toward the vehicle. I watched him in the passenger seat during the ride, earphones firmly in place, staring out the window like so many teenagers tend to do. A smile gradually blossomed upon my lips. He was growing up so quickly. and at times I found myself wondering if I might simply blink and lose him forever. The expedition toward the shoreline appeared to extend endlessly. Thoughts of Ethan washed over me, recalling the warmth we once shared, now fading into a distant memory. At last, we arrived at our destination, where Lucas lent a hand in carrying the bags to a tranquil spot by the water's edge. While he carefully positioned the umbrella, I took my time folding the towels with precision. A sudden urge to engage in conversation with him has wrapped me in a fog of bewilderment. Perhaps it was his role as my only confidant, or maybe I was just longing for someone who would truly listen. Stepping into the great outdoors brings forth a delightful surge of joy. Do you not see it the same way? He sought to radiate an air of joy as he deftly gestured with his fingers, casually sweeping back his hair with an effortless grace. Indeed, beloved mother, it is genuinely a delight. I settled onto the towel, letting the sun's gentle warmth envelop my skin, and lingered in peaceful quietude. For a fleeting moment, I granted myself a short reprieve, striving to lighten the weight of the years that have passed, if only for a brief hour. The sun radiated with a fervor that compelled me to steal a look at Lucas. "Could you lend me a hand with the oil on my back?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor that ran through my chest. I lay back, eyes closed, as his fingers, tentative at first, brushed against my skin. The warmth of his touch deepened, his fingers tracing over my shoulders, moving downward until I felt him tense, his breath catching in his throat. I permitted him to proceed. Without interruption, I was frozen in place, lying back with my gaze fixed on the towel, steeling myself for what was to come. The initial touch was gentle and cautious, his hands quivering, as though he sought to protect me from even the slightest trace of unease. A smile graced my lips, stirring echoes of his childhood, when he would grasp my hand tightly as we strolled down the street side by side. In those days, his hands were so small that I could apply just a touch more pressure. I conveyed the message to him, my voice low, and it is pleasing. He absorbed every moment with keen focus, and with each smooth application of oil on my shoulders, his hands grew more powerful in their caress. In a fleeting moment, I permitted myself to completely savor the experience. In that instant, his hands glided gently and deliberately along the contour of my back, causing my breath to catch in my throat. As I parted my lips to reply, an overwhelming silence enveloped me, rendering me completely speechless. I comforted myself with the belief that it was perfectly fine. He claimed he was merely offering assistance, implying that I was deceiving myself. Yet, I came to realize that I was not ensnared in such a dilemma. His hands hovered briefly at the edge of my towel, and I could feel his hesitation. I felt the stirrings of my own emotions, and instead of stopping him, I replied, "It's fine, please continue." The words hung in the air, and the moment they slipped from my mouth, I felt their steadfast presence. Lucas remained still, enveloped in an eerie silence. I closed my eyes with determination, my hold steadfast, acutely aware of his hands hovering in a way that was undeniably inappropriate. My heart raced with intensity, as though he could sense its wild cadence. I longed to adjust and raise myself into an upright position. I had the power to command him to stop, yet I chose to hold back. I could not permit it to unravel. Even now, I grapple with the uncertainty that shrouds the reasons behind my decisions. Did loneliness drive me onward, or was it a deep-seated desire for validation, regardless of the moral consequences? Or was it simply a sense of indifference that influenced my choices? On that fateful day by the shore, a profound chasm opened within me, irrevocably altering the essence of my being. Upon contemplation, I cannot overlook the significant transformation that emerged following that day by the shore. The emotions surged within me, the scenes that unfolded before my eyes, and Lucas's lingering gaze were anything but ephemeral. Their determination was unwavering. With every glance exchanged, a palpable transformation emerged within him, an indescribable essence that eluded my attempts at definition, yet remained completely undeniable. Again and again, I was pulled back to those moments we experienced together, the way he lingered in the atmosphere, and the palpable tension that coursed through my veins. I loathed myself for it and harbored resentment towards him, for provoking such emotions while my stepson Ethan remained blissfully unaware. He arrived home late, as was his custom, his tie askew and his expression betraying fatigue. He pressed his lips to my cheek, a gesture rich with familiarity, a subtle whisper of what had once been. After a long day, I sought a conversation, my heart eager for connection. Yet he simply grunted and nodded, making his way toward the living room. The house exuded a serene calm, while within me, a storm of thoughts raged on without respite. Visions of Lucas consumed my thoughts, his touch and the fervor of his stare resonating endlessly within me. In the quiet moments of introspection, I realized that the fervor of my emotions was, perhaps, misdirected. I realized that I needed to act swiftly to prevent this from spiraling out of control. A shadowy, contemplative part of my being longed to hold onto it, craving recognition, the gentle touch, the feeling of truly being noticed. As the days unfolded, Lucas's silence lingered, imbued with a deep significance that spoke volumes of unexpressed realities. He did not exactly slip from my hold, rather. It seemed he hovered just within reach. He would draw my gaze as I navigated the kitchen, arranging things with care, or found myself in quiet reflection on the couch, enveloped by the night, and I let the moment unfold. I allowed him to continue unimpeded, holding back my urge to intervene. As the next weekend drew near, it came bearing a sweltering heat that wrapped the home in a stifling embrace. Ethan set forth on a quest to tend to one final ship, leaving Lucas and me in quiet solitude. Once more, I asked him if he would be inclined to revisit the beach. Just the two of us. The motivations behind this proposal I've presented remain shrouded in uncertainty. Perhaps I entertained the notion that immersing myself in the vast expanse of nature would bring forth fruitful outcomes, illuminating my thoughts. Perhaps I sought to expand the limits of my comprehension, to discover if I could unravel it all. This journey unfolded with a serene grace. Lucas, however, chose to forego his headphones. He stood still, his eyes fixed on the unfolding drama beyond the glass. Yet his knee betrayed an unquenchable restlessness, bouncing with a life of its own. A sudden urge welled up inside me, driving me to break the silence with a handful of words. Any words at all. Yet, with every effort to express my thoughts, the words became stuck in my throat. As I stepped onto the sandy shore, I found the beach nearly empty, the ocean's vivid blue wrapping around me, blending seamlessly with the gentle murmur of the breeze that caressed my skin. I carefully rearranged the towels, mirroring the methodical approach I had taken with Lucas, ensuring that everything was organized with precision. I did not ask him to apply oil to my back, rather. I held my ground, eyelids closed, projecting an aura of calmness. Even with my eyes closed, I could feel the weight of his gaze unmistakably fixed upon me. That moment signified the genuine turning point. That afternoon, we chose to refresh ourselves at the beach showers prior to our departure, eager to quickly cleanse the sand that clung to our skin. As we reached the showers, an unexplainable occurrence unfolded before us. Lucas was the first to plunge into the water, feeling it cascade down his back in a gentle, soothing embrace. From the periphery of my sight, I caught a brief glimpse of him before stepping fully into his orbit. An irresistible urge drove me to shed my outer layers and immerse myself in the water, its refreshing touch awakening my senses. Lucas looked at me, his expression a masterpiece of astonishment. I grapple with the inquiry of whether it was simply amazement, a sense of doubt, or perhaps something entirely different. Yet, he chose to remain silent. A brief moment revealed his presence to me. She then examined him closely and declared, "You might want to consider removing your shorts too. It is essential to guarantee a comprehensive rinsing." I often reflect on the reasons that drive me to articulate this thought. Perhaps I aimed to establish my authority or to impede the advancement of events as they unfolded. Perhaps I was assessing both him and the essence of my own existence. He hesitated for a moment before acquiescing, slipping off his shoes, and in that ephemeral instant, we became one, embraced by the water, as the rain cascaded around us, washing away the world yet leaving our feelings untouched. I averted my gaze from him and gently asked for help with my back. He offered his hands with the same gentleness as before, yet the unmistakable tension that hung in the air between us was utterly inescapable. as his hand grazed my waist. An unexpected tension surged within me, the air around us growing heavy. Though the cacophony of the rushing water enveloped me, I could have chosen to turn and leave. In that ephemeral instant, I might have captured the very essence. Yet as the water tumbled forth, I found myself drawn closer. The refreshing droplets danced against my warm skin as I took his hands, guiding them to my shoulders, then slowly lowering them until they rested softly against me. His grip tightened for an instant, a silent understanding flowing between us, and I leaned into him, the space that once divided us fading away. It was devoid of gentleness or languor, just a brief instance of urgency, unpolished and stark, before the water carried everything off. It was a transient instant, a haze born from necessity, solitude, and an ineffable feeling. It came with a force that was neither soft nor slow. The situation was pressing, filled with fervor, yet tainted by flaws at every corner. Yet, I found myself powerless to halt its advance. A sense of emptiness washed over me, leaving no inclination to pursue that any further. As it came to an end, we stood motionless, the water flowing around us, washing away the remnants, yet preserving the essence of reality. He enveloped me in his arms, a feeling that felt unfamiliar after such a prolonged separation, and I responded with a warmth that matched his own. In the aftermath, a deep silence enveloped us as we dried ourselves with towels. In tranquil silence, we gathered our belongings and made our way back to the car. I watched Lucas from the sidelines, his face aglow and his movements stiff. I came to understand that I had inflicted lasting harm upon all that surrounded me. We had traversed an unyielding frontier. After an extended period, a thrilling vitality coursed through my being. The voyage back began in stillness. The vehicle enveloped us in a tight embrace, its weight palpable, as though the very atmosphere bore down on us with unyielding intensity. With a firm grip on the steering wheel, I focused intently on the road ahead. Even as my thoughts churned in a chaotic storm, Lucas's presence hung in the atmosphere. His hands, his body, the gravity of our recent decisions, palpable in the silence. I often steal glances at him in the passenger seat. He stayed taut, staring out the window, his complexion heated and jaw tightly set. In an unexpected turn of events, he candidly expressed his thoughts. "Mother," he spoke softly, his voice barely rising above a whisper. Laced with uncertainty, I turned my eyes away from him. Though I could not reply, I became cognizant of his remarks regarding the recent occurrence. For a fleeting moment, my heart raced at the idea of pretending not to know and brushing it aside completely. The conversation took a turn, yet pretending not to know was no longer an option, particularly in light of our deeds. I took a shaky breath and replied, "I do not know." That was the reality, or perhaps the nearest semblance of it. Uncertainty enveloped me as I contemplated the events that had unfolded and the hidden motivations that propelled them forward. All I understood was that everything had transformed. Our silence lingered, until we finally reached the driveway. I switched off the engine. But still, neither of us stirred a muscle. At last, Lucas directed his gaze my way, truly perceiving me for the first time. In that instant, a chilling presence flickered in his eyes, wrapping around me in a shroud of fear. It was neither confusion, nor guilt, nor even shame. Rather, it was a deep longing that dwelled within. "For how long have you kept these feelings locked away within you?" He sought to send a chill coursing through me with his words. As I had been pondering the very same topic, I looked at him, and it felt as though a deep rift had formed inside me. I observed, perhaps longer than I wished. In the tranquil embrace of the night we lingered in silent reflection, pondering whether to retreat indoors, banishing the incident from our thoughts, and adopting the guise of normalcy. Yet, Lucas harbored unique aspirations. Just as I was on the verge of opening the door, he leaned in and seized my lips with his. At first, it radiated a soft warmth and a sense of fragility. He appeared wary, as though he dreaded the prospect of my retreat. Yet, I experienced no such urge. I allowed him to kiss me, returning the gesture, and then succumbed to a wave of emotion. Unsure if it stemmed from the loneliness of years spent in neglect or the intensity of Lucas's gaze, which had been missing for far too long, I surrendered to the essence of the moment that lingered just beyond our door. Lucas enveloped me in his arms, his hands moving over my body with an unmistakable sense of destiny, as if they were always meant to rest there. After years of slumber, a thrilling surge of vitality coursed through me, igniting a profound desire and a heartfelt recognition of my own worth. Nothing else held significance. The length of our bond fades from my recollection, yet in time, we found solace within the confines of our haven. The memory of our walk to the door is blurred, yet the warmth of his hand enveloping mine remains, accompanied by the charged silence that saturated the air with unspoken feelings. Silence enveloped us, making words feel utterly insignificant. Upon entering, the atmosphere thickened, pulsating with an unmistakable vitality, as though we had been holding back for ages. And at last, the floodgates had burst open. The days that followed were shrouded in a thick mist, with Lucas lingering close, always on the lookout for moments to subtly graze against me or steal a quick look when he thought he was out of sight. I compelled myself to restrain, to retreat, to halt the unfolding of whatever this might evolve into. Whenever my gaze met his, I felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness that reflected my own, as if we were nothing more than echoes of each other, vibrating with the same lack of substance, the same sorrow. The allure was simply too strong. I found myself captivated, with no inclination to turn my gaze elsewhere. As shadows enveloped the room, I found myself lying in bed next to Ethan. My thoughts wander in reflection of the connection we forged, flowing seamlessly with the cadence of his breath. As my thoughts wandered to Lucas in the next room, I remembered the warmth of his touch and how he breathed life into my very soul. With my eyes closed, I coiled inward like a serpent, coming to the realization that this path was not one I could sustain. I had knowledge of it. The circumstances were far from ideal, and I found myself powerless to halt the growing discord between us. A strain that deepened with each passing day, ultimately leading to a dramatic confrontation. It unfolded late one evening, as I toiled earnestly in Ethan. As I slipped into a dreamlike state, Lucas and I stood in the kitchen, absorbed in the soothing rhythm of washing dishes. A distraction I sought to fill my mind. I felt him there, lingering just behind me, an invisible player in the waltz of shadows. He was looking at me with the same intensity as he had on the beach. "Lucas," I murmured gently, hoping to steer him away from the course he had set for himself. As he approached, the space between us diminished, and I could sense the warmth of his breath caressing my neck. "Mother," he murmured gently, "it persists in my thoughts." Unrelentingly, I found myself utterly paralyzed, my heart racing with a ferocity that made me fear it could burst forth from my chest. I meant to direct him to halt his leaving. He made his way back to his room, an air of determination suggesting he intended to leave me behind. Yet, I found myself unable to yield to that notion. I looked at him, uttering the single phrase I ought to have held back, yet found myself unable to resist. In that ephemeral instant, all came undone, and Lucas hovered just close enough, his breath a gentle caress against my neck. "Mom," he whispered, his voice laden with unspoken feelings. I turned, and his hand found its place on my waist, gently pulling me nearer to him. His lips brushed against mine, initially with a touch of uncertainty, but soon with a fervent assurance. I welcomed the warmth of his presence, wrapping around me and quieting all else. It was misdirected, yet it felt like a rejuvenating breeze after a long period of suffocation. In a fleeting moment of desperation, I yielded to his kiss, casting aside the moral dilemmas and the reality of Ethan, along with the life we had so carefully built. What started as a brief encounter has transformed into a heavy weight of shame that I find difficult to bear. The circumstances remain the same, yet my determination remains unshaken. It is precisely this element that stirs the deepest dread within my soul. Every day, I observe my husband Ethan and my daughter, and I find myself reflecting on their obliviousness, their inability to see the world as it truly exists. The widening cracks within our family seem to arise from their fixation on their own existences, leaving them unaware of the struggles I face. Or, perhaps I have simply grown more skilled at hiding them. Yet, I am acutely conscious that this circumstance cannot persist forever. Whispers of hidden truths hover in the recesses of our existence, poised for the instant they can emerge into the brightness. when they ultimately unveil their true selves, the repercussions will surely exceed any attempts I made to keep them hidden. I have consistently persuaded myself that this is mistaken, that Lucas merits better treatment and that I too am deserving of more. Yet, every time his hand grazes mine or his gaze ensnares me with that quiet intensity, I find myself pausing. I recognize that it constitutes a boundary. The fracture in the reality I wove with Ethan cannot be undone. In Lucas's touch, I unearth a spark, long concealed, a warmth I crave even as it tears at the core of my existence. He infuses my spirit with a vitality I haven't felt in years. Perhaps never before, and that is the truth I must confront. I find myself at an impasse in addressing this dilemma. In the midst of the swirling fog of uncertainty that envelops the resolution of this matter, I find myself driven to share my narrative, with the hope that perhaps someone, somewhere, holds the key to unraveling a solution. I find myself in a realm yet to be explored, a landscape of thoughts I have yet to ponder. Could you kindly help me navigate through this turmoil before it escalates beyond redemption? I humbly request that you share any insights you might have, especially if you have faced a similar circumstance or know someone who has. I am filled with anticipation for your response. Furthermore, may this stand as a warning for all. In the stillness of solitude, one may unearth profound depths that were previously unfathomable. Steer clear of wandering too far from the course I have taken.